Okay, Manchester, UK. 3 videos at a time. I'm Stephen Goddard. I've started along the Portland Basin today and across the Tame aqueducts, and I'm walking up Peak Forest Canal. The flat section here at the bottom, very little happens, to be honest. So it's a separate canal. Then there's a mile of 18 lock gates, I think. And then at the top of those lock gates is another section that leads to the Peak Forest. Bugsworth. So I'm going to walk along today and just do my scouting as usual, but this is my introduction. Also, Macclesfield Canal is fairly interesting. In fact, it's very interesting. So, been here before, several occasions actually. Possibly one of my favourite canals. So we're heading up from the base. So this is part 1 of Peak Forest Canals. It also links to the Aston Canal. Hi, how are you doing? I'm just going to get some interesting points and explain the history. But the Macclesfield Canal links to this. They were all part of Cheshire at one point. Now they're part of Lancashire, Greater Manchester and Cheshire. So it's all changed. But it's sort of got Greater Manchester, but we're on the Cheshire side. It's part of the Cheshire Ring. And the first thing I'd like to point out along here, I don't know if you'll get it, the canal's actually flowing. It's flowing north. We're actually travelling south, which is quite an unusual scenario. We're travelling south, but we're going uphill. So being a northerner, that might confuse me. So that's travelling north, because it supplies the Aston Canal locks. Most canals do start high up and flow down, or they tend to be level. So there's our first bridge. So Peak Forest Canal. So the area we're starting off from, as you know, we set off from the Aston Canal, but it's Peak Forest Canal. Mary Moffat, 1795-1871. She was actually an African missionary who travelled the world with Livingstone, Dr. Livingstone, the explorer. Anyway, that's just an interesting point. So it's a waterway in northern England. It's 14.8 miles, 23.8 kilometres long. It forms part of the Connected English-Welsh Inland Waterway Network. Your maximum boat length on this canal, 72 feet, 21.95 metres. Maximum boat beam is 7 foot, 2.13 metres. That's its height out of the water. It's got 16 locks, not 18. Navigation Authority is the Canal and River Trust now. It's navigatable as an inland cruise pleasure waterway. The history of the canal: Peak Forest Canal Company, Benjamin Outram. Other engineer was Thomas Brown. I think they had some falling outs along the way. Construction began 1794. Date of first use is 1796. It was impassable by early 1960s. Date restored 1974. The geography is Duckenfield Junction, Ashton-under-Lyne, and its endpoint is Bugsworth Basin in Buxworth, or Buxton, or Bugsworth in Old Language. Whalley Bridge Branch Canal leads from it, Ashton Canal leads from it, and the Macclesfield Canal leads from this. We're on the lower part. Just going to walk along and talk. Manchester UK, brief videos of time. I'm Stephen Goddard, having a stroll as I do on canals, sussing out the route for the Macclesfield really, because it's yet again another one popped up, just a little branch canal. Turns out it's massive. It's the Trent and Mersey navigation the Cheshire Ring was linked up to, so they all end up in Liverpool eventually. So Lower Peak Forest Canal heads south from Duckenfield Junction at Duckenfield in Greater Manchester. It makes a junction with the Ashton Canal at the southern end of the Tame Aqueduct, through Newton, Hyde, Woodley, Redbury and Romley, before crossing the River Goyt. It's not a river that's in a goyt, it's the River Goyt. That's how you pronounce Goyt. You spell it with a Y, a H and an I. It's an old word, an old term from olden days. It's a canal feeder is another term you can use, but it's not one of those. This is just called the River Goyt. Ancient river. So anyway, yeah, it's across the Tame Aqueduct. So yeah, the River Goyt is a river, an ancient river. It crosses that river on the Marple Aqueduct. So Marple's another place it passes through. So alongside a railway viaduct, it crosses Marple Aqueduct to the foot of Marple Locks, a distance of 6.9 miles. That's the length of the canal, and then you get to the locks, which span over about a mile area, and they just, you know, it just goes up one gradient through 16 locks all over a mile, and then there's another flat section of canal. So the environment's largely rural. We pass through woods and fields. Some industrial premises do encroach towards the Duckenfield end of the pound, whilst the 1 mile section through Marple Locks is legally part of the Lower Peak Forest Canal, but it's often considered its own separate section. So years ago I bet they were in different districts owned by different councils. Through the centre of Marple, it connects the Macclesfield Canal at Marple Junction. The Upper Peak Forest Canal, it's on the same level as that of the Upper Macclesfield Canal, so allowing boats to cruise from Whalley Bridge to away at the top locks. Bosley is where that top lock is, and without having to use any locks, the boats can travel to and from there, and you just drop down through the section of locks. It's straight again all the way pretty much to the Ardenshire, Failsworth. There's no locks then, it's all pretty much level. Yeah, so you don't have to pass through any locks, as I said. The canal is perched halfway up the valley side with extensive views of the Furnace Vale. Get very nice views of the Peak District as well in that direction. So just to show that I'm here, I'm actually just mapping down some notes on a pilot scheme. The top section is going to be far more interesting, that's why. Just getting some shots of this as we walk on, give you some information. So it's mixed in with, obviously, the other sections up the top. So we're going to do it as 3 probably separate videos, but not 3 separate canals. I'll mix them up because this one's a bit flat and not very much going on. So it offers extensive views of the Peak District beyond from Marple, though Strines, Disley, New Mills, Furness Vale and Bridgemont, it terminates at Bugsworth Basin, Derbyshire. So yep, it's in a different place. It's not Leeds either, so Derbyshire up on the Pennine Moors. It's a distance of 6.9 miles as well. They're pretty much even, the bottom and top. The village was renamed Bugsworth in Victorian times. Recently the extensive basin has been reopened. It is now a popular venue for visiting boats. There is also a short branch from Bridgemont to the centre of Whalley. Once the site of a connection to the Comford and High Peak Railway, which ran across the Peak District and joined up with Cromford Canal on the other side of the Pennines, I assume. So a railway linked the 2 canals. You just have to swap your goods over. It's a cruising waterway now. The canal was authorised by an Act of Parliament in 1794, so it's been around over 225 years. So, something interesting to look at. Yeah, a very flat section it is. So I'm just going to pass under this road bridge. Like I say, it's only the 2nd bridge along. And I'll just duck down. I'm actually getting out again, you know, for the exercise. Believe it or not, it is summer and we have got late nights, but we experienced a bit of bad weather. It is actually quite peaceful around these parts. It's like a countryside and you can hear the river quite clearly. Yeah, always nice to be able to hear nice peaceful sounds instead of traffic. So the Peak Forest Canal was authorised by Act of Parliament in 1794. Its purpose was to provide an outlet for the vast limestone deposits around Dove Holes. That's a place up in the Pennines. Dove Place and Dove Holes. Dove Holes is over 1,000 feet in the air on the Pennines, 300 metres above sea level. The canal was terminated at a basin in Bugsworth in Derbyshire, and the line was continued up to the quarries by means of a gravity operated feeder tramway known as the Peak Forest Tramway. The construction of the canal and tramway was promoted by Samuel Oldknow. He's the largest shareholder in the whole canal system, so probably the richest mill owner in the area. Yeah, we keep split out, we can hear the river again. Really nice that. It's cut through countryside originally. It's pretty much still untouched. Much of the finance for the canal being provided by Richard Arkwright Jr. Of Cromford, Derbyshire. The line was surveyed by Thomas Brown, the consulting engineer, and the resident engineer was Benjamin Outram and Thomas Brown respectively. So the two of them did it together, but you'll see that Benjamin Outram has his say. Work was begun first on the section between Ashton and Hyde Hall, where new coal pits were being opened so as to derive some income as soon as possible. So they probably started building these before the Acts of Parliament were passed. I already thought that. And they cut right through open countryside. And they've got lots of places they can build because there's not much built yet. Trains do the same, and then roads obviously. You know, they've cut forest down and gone through moorland and everything to build motorways and roads. So canals are pretty environmental friendly, I'd say. Apart from you can't cross them because you get wet. So the new coal pits derived some income while they were building the canal. Outram was somewhat delayed by a request from the committee to report on ideas by Robert Fulton, who had been awarded the contract for cutting at Werneth. Cutting is a canal. So he's responsible for that. These would have replaced the stone construction of Marple Aqueduct by a somewhat flimsy cast iron trough. Outram was experiencing problems with the Holmes Aqueduct on the Derby Canal. He was well aware of the potential weakness. Fulton had also suggested the use of small tugboats rather than conventional narrow boats, and an inclined plane at Marple instead of locks. Outram, having privately voiced his disquiet, he doesn't like this idea. Fulton's plans were quietly dropped. So no lock gates. You'd have to unload the boat, go up a ramp and load other boats to continue. But they want them continuous so nothing gets broken because it's lime kilns and clay. At the same time as Outram was working on the lower end, came under pressure to make progress on the section Bugsworth to Marple. And Samuel Oldknow's coal pits and lime kilns could then access, all the way down to Manchester, because they want to make money. That's why they're building the canals, to make the process of making money faster. So it looks like they've worked separately from one another. One on the top section, one on the bottom sections. So it cost a bit more in this way, having two managers and two different systems. Possibly contributed to the, £1,100 overspend recorded in 1795. That's probably close to £1 million or £500,000 or something in these days. There were problems getting the shareholders to meet their commitments also. Not everyone's got faith in the canals. Might not work, and you've already got a system of horses and carts. So by 1796, this had risen to £4,000. So in August, the tramway and the canal opened to Marple. It just cost a lot more than they expected. Nevertheless, at the end of 1796, funds from the investors were still insufficient to finish the locks and the aqueduct at Marple, and Outram was asked to suggest a temporary alternative. He produced two solutions, one to cross the arches of the aqueduct, the other, assuming that the arches were unfinished, it was decided not to interfere with the ongoing construction of the aqueduct. So the railway ran from its Marple end to the proposed top lock. The arches of the aqueduct were completed in November 1798, and the workers were given a handsome treat in celebration, being finally completed towards the end of 1799, so ready for 1800. Still a great deal of work to do. Yeah, and so have I, because I've got Macclesfield Canal, as I said, to investigate. So we're coming to the end of this video, which explains how it got started and its uses and its purposes. But I'm going to show you the actual lock gates next time, which is what is under construction and what is proving to be so difficult. Also the railway that goes up to the actual kilns, tramway. Tramways predate railways in a way, because you use them in coal mines, but they were different. They were horse drawn. The driving of Hyde Bank Tunnel, proving a particular problem. And the railway and the aqueduct saw little use until the canal finally opened, the full one, 1800, like I said, but no boats had floated. They hadn't floated any boats or moved any cargo along. It's nearly 6 years since the Acts of Parliament. So it's not good, because they're all spending money and they're not making anything back yet. The upper level of the canal and tramway is what I'll discuss in another section of the films. So once the upper levels, which is what we'll discuss in another movie, the upper levels of the canal and tramway were opened, Bugsworth Basin soon became bustling interchange between tramway and canal and commuters and business. And that'll be in the next video. Take care everybody, and really thanks for watching my videos. Please like and subscribe if you don't know how to do that. You just click on the little picture of me or press your button while the screen's on, and the thumbs up should appear at the bottom. Just click on the thumbs up. Thank you, appreciate it. So this is part one of Peak Forest canals. It also links to the Aston Canal. I'm just going to get some interesting points and explain the history. But the Macclesfield Canal links to this. They were all part of Cheshire at one point. Now they're part of Lancashire, Greater Manchester and Cheshire.